Hello and welcome to the Miyazaki 2022 pre-race analysis. So this year the race is a sprint distance triathlon. Traditionally has been a classic distance. We have a 1 lap swim. We have 4 laps on the bike, predominantly flat on a highway with a tight 180-degree turn, just using half of the highway at the far point. That is definitely something that we'll need to look closer at. With some little turns coming back into transition to complete the lap. The run is 2 laps, heading out the same way as the bike, and then we go onto a narrow path in a parkland area. Then the run predominantly follows the foreshore, so prevailing winds are probably the toughest things there. Heading out onto the road before making a 180-degree turn to either complete the lap or finish the race. So it's a lot different to previous year's races. Toughest section probably is the start and the swim. So we have a run down the beach, very short sort of run into the water, steep bank. Really have to time that well. And as you can see, even though it's in a protected harbour, there are a lot of waves making their way in and swells and affecting the swim. So short, choppy strokes probably the best, and there's also some areas of shallow water which are allowing the athletes to stand up. You will have to make a decision as to whether that's quicker or not, because quite often that is actually deeper than it appears. Now, running up the beach to T1, it's about just over a minute's run, so it's quite a long transition run from swim to bike. Transition area, as you enter, you've got a little ramp, and you'll have to negotiate that also on the bike and run. Transition is fairly simple, can get congested as we've seen more in the men's race. The bike course is mostly flat on the motorway. There are some technical areas in and out of transition. As you can see here, the ramp heading into transition, and then on the exit, as you have passed through transition, you've got some chicanes heading out onto the motorway. So obviously in a large pack, that is, they're the most technical areas. So heading out onto the motorway, the groups tend to reform around the 180-degree turn. Now, this turn here is showing the use of both sides of the motorway. In 2022, we're only using one side of the motorway, so it's going to be a lot tighter than that. And I think that's something that you're going to really have to have a look at pre-race as you go over the course. So T2, it's fairly tight if you are in a large bunch. So it's one of those transition areas that you really need to try and get into at the front of the group. And the run, as we head out, does take up the same way as the bike. So you've got the chicanes heading out, and then you head into a narrow pathway through a park area. And because the run is heading out and also returning through this parkway, you can actually see where your competitors are. So it's one of those runs where you really need to know the pace that you need to be holding and working on making sure that you're holding that pace and checking it off on your competitors. It's one of those courses also that it's quite hard to get out of sight because there's so many areas where you can have a look at where everyone is. So I think one of the toughest things is the prevailing winds, because you are predominantly running along the foreshore, but it is also one of those runs that requires long sections of quite intense efforts. So long finishing shoot, which hopefully if you're in this position, you'll be celebrating hard. So good luck to all those racing. Should be a great race.